Hello, beautiful people. This is Joshua, and in this video, I'm going to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while, and it's been bothering me for quite some time. I think it's one of those examples of commercialism getting in the way of educating children. And I'm making this video because our parents also need to be aware of this issue. I hope that you can agree, but well, let's get started. I am resentful towards anything, any curriculum that's being advertised without a clear purpose. And one of the buzzwords that I'm seeing a lot these days among 학원 is 원서 강의, 원서. Basically, that translates to English text, doesn't it? I don't know if that matters if the author is Korean or not, but I'm guessing that when people say 원서 is sort of that making a lecture around books that are published in America or English spoken countries, possibly popular titles. So well, my beef with 원서 강의 is that, well, my philosophy is this. If you want to read something, it's better to equip the readers with enough knowledge that they can translate or they can understand the text. And without that, if you just throw the text and here is the 원서, here is the text, let's read it, let's keep reading it, and somehow along the way, a magic will happen and you will get some sense out of it. Well, that's a fairy tale. That's not going to happen. Reading needs to be also comprehensive, and the comprehensible input method that we always embarking on applies also here. Listening is another matter. Listening, yes, you can listen and listen without paying much attention, and your brain will do the work. Listening, yes, magic does happen without you realizing that your ears are fine-tuning towards certain sounds. So listening, yes, but reading is an active endeavor, and without knowing the words, without knowing the sentence structures, and without means to make sense out of those words or sentences, it's going to be a very frustrating reading. And maybe you can imagine as parents yourselves that imagine yourself reading an Arabic text, for example, and you have no idea about. Is that a reading? Sure, maybe there is some audio help or someone to guide you along, but jumping right into a reading, for me, I would say it's a waste of time, really. And they're advertising this 원서 강의 as a thing because I know why this can be popular, because when you see your child reading a long list of words, sentences, reading it aloud, you will think that, my God, my child is a genius. This kid is reading it and is clearly understanding it. I know why this will bring you joy, but let's ask the questions. Let's be honest and let's ask the questions. Let's be honest and face the truth. Is that kid really following and understanding the text? And of course, another issue with teaching reading 원서 강의 is that yes, 학원s or teachers do need to make some sort of an assessment out of it. So the way they evaluate is that they will ask series of questions to check comprehension of the students. This will start probably from what's the appropriate title for the story to who said this, who said that. I'm not saying it's all futile, but because at the end of the day, reading is an input. Naturally, it's hard to assess, how to evaluate your reading skills. So by asking those questions, yes, you could check readers' reading ability to a certain extent, but not accurately, never accurately, because children can always make a deductive guess. In fact, most of my students gotten quite good at making that guess from the words they recognize. Not by understanding the overall flow of the story, but by recognizing the words and maybe, yes, maybe they do know the flow because, yes, they are guessing it. They're guessing the stories. Well, does this help? Does this really mean that your child's reading abilities is developing? I don't know. I have second doubts about that. And I have doubts about that. And the way they organize these 원서 textbooks is according to their Lexile levels, Lexile charts, I don't know. But I cannot really make sense out of that either. I'm sure someone very clever made those reconcile charts according to readers' levels. So what am I suggesting? That we drop this all together? I mean, Wonsa itself isn't a bad thing. And Wonsa, by the way, is those books that I've been teaching, or usually the books they use. They are, in fact, written by natives mostly, and they didn't have ESL students in mind. They didn't write those stories for, let's say, Korean students per se, because, yeah, those stories were really designed for the natives. So, of course, the expressions they use are very colloquial, and there are cultural elements to it. And a lot of sentences and dialogues will be alien to Korean kids. And is it good to expose them early to our children? Yes, maybe. We can teach them some expressions. But again, that doesn't mean that we are developing their reading skills. And the way I suggest we do is we need to be strategic about this. At least at Turbani's, we don't expose stories or reading materials to our children unless we have equipped them first. Let's say we've covered be verbs and verb changes and the past tense. And upon these premises, upon these grammar rules, we will develop a story. Using the expressions they can recognize, and we make a story and we'll have them read. And what are the benefits for doing this? Benefits are clear. They can make sense out of it because they studied these grammar rules and expressions before, and they can understand it. They can follow the flow. It gives them time to revise what they learned, and because we are exposing the expressions they learned, they also end up memorizing the expressions. And so what am I saying? The stories need to align. Stories need to align with the curriculums, the progressions of curriculums that we teach. So yeah, that's my beef with 원서 강의. And well, I'm gonna have to advertise Turbani's. At Turbani's, we do make our own stories. We have our three characters, of course, easy Tumba brain, and every week we create new stories, and we make 3 or 4 or 5 parts of stories, and it's fun because children are part of making that story, so they're actively engaged. And it's fun because their ideas are sometimes reflected in the story. So, and we don't just read, we also read the stories out loud. We voice record them, and I check their pronunciations. So they go through the same stories at least a week or two, and by then they know by heart most of the key expressions and stories. And it's always fun. Stories are outrageous, but they're fun. And we will be posting those stories on YouTube too, so you can check them out. So yeah, well, I will wrap it up around here. So that was my beef with teaching English text. Reading skill, I think is super important, but we cannot just jump into it. We cannot just jump into reading. We need to build our students up first. Then we expose them bit by bit. We need to be strategic about how we expose text to our children. So yeah. All right, if you have any comments, any thoughts, leave it in the comment. Thank you for watching. This was Joshua from Turbaniz. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Turbaniz, making new ways.
That's being advertised without a clear purpose. 원서. That translates to English text, doesn't it? If you just throw the text and here is the ones, and without knowing the words, without knowing the sentence structures, and of course another issue with teaching reading 원서 강의, but I cannot really make sense out of that either. And is it good to expose them early to our children? Stories need to align with the curriculums, progressions of curriculums that we teach.